Barbara.
I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Naima. We're three Black moms.
I want to go to the Wayback Machine. I want to talk about when our babies were babies, and I'm talking newborns. Specifically, I want to talk about breastfeeding. For us in the Black community, a lot of young mothers or new mothers are more or less discouraged from doing the healthiest thing that they can for their babies, and that's breastfeeding. They're not supported if they have to go back to work early. They are given free formula, and which, especially if they get, SNAP or Women, Infants, and Children, WIC, they're given that at first, and they're not given the support they need to start this process because breastfeeding doesn't just come naturally to everyone. Many times, women are discouraged by their doctors or their nurses, or if they or their family members. This is the healthiest thing that you can do for your baby because your body is making what your baby needs. If you have a baby that was born prematurely, the breast milk or the colostrum is is already configured to help that baby grow. And yet we see that with our children, our Black babies dying at a rate of 2.3 times more than white infants, we need to talk about what we can do to support our young moms to have their children get a healthy start. And since I don't want to do all the talking, I'm going to let my two sisters tell how long they breastfed their children, and then I'll talk about my experiences.
Well, I'm sure that I went. I went the distance because we're taught, in our spiritual community to go that a child needs 2 years of breastfeeding, and so it was at least 30 months with Zakia. And, she was old enough to spell milk by the time she stopped breastfeeding. But, I think it had a lot to do with us being very close in the beginning. I carried her around in a pouch, and I was still involved in various events, community meetings, and things like that. And it just was so much easier to just, take her aside and breastfeed her and come right back and sit back in the meeting as opposed to, going through whole bottles and all that business. And of course, I had read about, and I knew the importance of breastfeeding, not just health-wise, but emotionally, it's better for your child. But one thing I noticed when I gave birth, and it was a woman in the bed next to me in the room, and she was talking about how she was not going to be breastfeeding. She, was going to tie up her breast so that she didn't breastfeed. And the doctors were kind of encouraging formula. They're, we're going to get you formula. So I'm like, nah, I'm breastfeeding. What's the matter with you? But I know that it's also a part of, I guess, standard procedure to kind of offer it to you and encourage you to buy the formula, and they tell you all how healthy it is. Well, I'd already decided, no, we're not getting formula because I know there's no better formula than what's natural. But there is always a financial incentive in selling us things. And so unless a woman has maybe somebody who is more inclined toward natural child raising, things such as breastfeeding and other kinds of natural childbirth methods, unless a woman is connected with that, more than likely she's going to be kind of pushed into not breastfeeding. And certain words are used like, oh, that's old fashioned, primitive, things that are said to make women feel ashamed of the idea as if it's something that only women who are not civilized do. I've heard language like that used. I remember when I was having my child, hearing women who thought themselves modern kind of make fun of the idea of breastfeeding. So I think we really have to work toward overturning that kind of propaganda, because now that we know that you really need a lot of the nutrients that come from breast milk in order to get the proper kind of immunities in your system, we need to be teaching young mothers that are being steered away from it and thinking it's inconvenient. We really need to push for that, because they're definitely being convinced or encouraged on the other end to use formula for their newborns.
Now, you guys are older than me. That's a very interesting that
No,
you
I'm
actually
not.
Oh,
ran. Did I say the
thought she
wrong
throw
word?
that in there, you know, did anybody caught it?
I meant that actually meant that you are younger than I am by a great number of years. And I am surprised
Freudian slip.
that you ran into that kind of discouragement. Maybe I ran with a group of women that were a little more progressive in terms of recognizing the health benefits of breastfeeding. I mean, I had one girlfriend, her child was almost 3 before she weaned him. And
Who's mine?
I went almost, yeah, spelling MILK, going to the refrigerator, mom. So I was living in a low-income community, but one of my close friends was a doula, another one was a
Explain
Lamaze
what that is,
teacher.
people don't know.
A doula is a person that helps in the birthing process.
Midwife.
They are trained like a midwife, and they will also teach the mom how to breastfeed if they're having difficulty with their baby being able to latch on. Maybe they have inverted nipples. They have to wear the little instrument that helps bring their nipples out so that the baby is able to latch on and nurse. And sometimes a new mom will be discouraged because they think, oh, I'm not made to nurse my baby, but that's totally false. But the other thing that is important to know is not only do you have the antibodies for as long as your child is nursing from the mom, it also helps the mom to recover from the birth afterward. And one of the things that I found to be very important was to surround yourself with like women that are going to be encouraging in that manner. Now, I had the opportunity to actually be a stay-at-home mom. And the thing that was funny, when my twins were born, people always wanted to come and see me breastfeeding 2 babies at once. I mean, I would be at these events and I would have a big sheet over my head. I would have John on one side, Lorelai on the other, and then I would switch so that I would be even. And people were always amazed at seeing that. It was like a phenomena that they had never witnessed before, and I didn't mind letting other moms see me. I think a person needs to educate themselves by doing a lot of reading. I read Chicago Parent, I read Parents Magazine, I read Childhood Magazine, and I read every article about raising children, feeding children, having that healthy atmosphere of kids. And I enjoyed my breastfeeding moments. I just have to say, those were things that made me feel close to my child. Now, I don't want a person who absolutely doesn't breastfeed to feel bad like they're not a mom, as long as you have that closeness where you're cuddling with your child and really building and bonding that relationship. Because I'll tell you, I had some complications with my first birth, and somehow I got staph at the hospital, and I wasn't able to breastfeed for the first 6 weeks. I was like, because I was on this medicine, I'm pumping my breast and throwing out this good breast milk. But I had a real mean intern actually who was there saying, "Oh, you silly women, you always want to breastfeed. Just put the baby on a bottle." And I remember just crying And the nurse came in and said, forget that dude. He is an
Oh, the man. Oh,
yeah. Oh,
no.
yeah. He was an
doesn't sound-
inexperienced idiot. Let me help you. She got me a machine from the hospital where I was able to pump, because she said, how long did you want to breastfeed? And I said, well, I wanted to be able to nurse my baby for at least a year. I'm like crying and all this stuff. She goes, you know what? You can do it. 6 weeks will go by like nothing, And so 6 weeks later, Lavinia, I was feeding her all the way until she was almost 2. And so that thing about discouragement is real. You need to have someone who is going to support you in your effort to do everything you can to do what is most natural.
Well, this is the thing that I have found. Two points I want to make. One is that the female breast has been so sexualized that we forget that's what they're there for. They're there to feed babies. And this is the thing. The other thing is that because I had great insurance, I had great private insurance. Even though I had great private insurance, they saw my black face and asked if I wanted WIC. And they actually do send you free formula every time, you have a baby. It's like crack. They get you started for free and then you have to go back and start paying for it. But the other thing is that I went to classes. I was shout out Mass General Hospital. I had classes there on cesarean section and what was going to happen, because I knew I was going to have a cesarean section. It had been, you know, determined that was the way I was going to have to go. And but I also knew I wanted to breastfeed. And I actually had a nurse, and she came and visited me later. And I had a nurse who taught us about breastfeeding, taught us about latching on, the whole thing. And then because I had a C-section, and the reason why I bring that up, you're in the hospital 5 days. And in that 5 days, your milk comes in. So when I started still feeling really, really hot, and I'm thinking, I'm not feeling that way. And then a nurse came in and she says, I think your milk is coming in. So she also helped me to teach the baby how to latch on. And we breastfed, I'll say we, because it was me and the baby, but I breastfed Sarah until she was 22 months old. And because they say at least 9 months, and then when not, or a year. And when the year came, I wasn't ready. And they said, oh, 18 months is good. And when the 18 months was over, I still wasn't ready, and she wasn't ready. By 22 months, we were thinking about having another one. So they said, well, you're going to have to wean her. But if I had known I was only going to have the one, she'd probably been breastfeeding probably up until she went to kindergarten. but but this is the thing, is that I mean, for one thing, if you're talking about money, that's another thing. It's cheaper, but we also don't support women who have to work. And there are pumps, there are places where you can pump, you can get the pumps. I actually got a really good one, and I ended up passing it on, even though they say you don't, but you just get new tubes and stuff. And that actually went to two different women who had babies after me, because it was such a good hospital grade pump, and they just got new tubes, and then they could pass it on. So we have to encourage our women if they can. Like, we're not saying that you're a bad mother if you can't, or if you, for whatever reason, you choose not to. We're just saying that if this is good for you, don't let people discourage you, because this is going to help your body heal, your uterus shrinks faster. You get go through the afterbirth process a lot faster, and your baby is healthier. It reduces the asthma rates, and a lot of Black children who have them, sometimes it's because of the industrial pollution in neighborhoods that we live in. So we're trying to counteract as much of that as we can with our bodies, because we have magnificent bodies. Women, we are absolutely magnificent. And don't let anybody tell you that breastfeeding is old fashioned, or you're not going to be able to do it, or anything, find support. There are support groups and there are support women. And I've actually helped a friend of mine who I actually had given the formula to because I wasn't using it, and she wanted to try to breastfeed. And then I actually went down and helped her, and she started learning how to get her little boy to latch on. And so, moms can help each other with that, but we have to. And the last thing I want to say is, it is against the law for someone to discourage you from breastfeeding in public. Like I say, that had to be a law because people are so sexualized breasts that they don't understand that you don't want to take your baby to the bathroom to eat because you probably don't eat on the toilet yourself.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that out because there've been a whole lot of situations where women have had to challenge people telling them, "Oh, do that in the bathroom or something." And so there did have to be a law passed for that. But a lot of it is really a cultural thing that we have to look at, as you say, the sexualization of breasts. Now, I've been in other cultural situations where it's no big deal. And so you would not look at a woman who's breastfeeding her child like, oh, she's doing that in public. So women, we have to work toward changing the cultural attitude about breastfeeding, about mothers feeling comfortable to be able to breastfeed. I mean, I breastfeed Zaki everywhere. And I just had a little blanket over, so people aren't watching everything. But I think it's important for us, as you say, to be supportive of other mothers and to not let other people make it into something disgusting or, oh, you're doing that here, because that's their problem. So we have to create a healthy attitude about breastfeeding, about breasts in general, and about motherhood so that we don't have people taking something that is natural, this is what it's for, and twisting it into something obscene. So those are the kinds of conversations we need to have with young women and with young men and with old men, just
And with old women.
and with old women, because a lot of that attitude comes with old attitudes, shame, guilt, making everything that is natural somehow unnatural. So I think it's our responsibility to change the cultural attitude and to be encouraging of women and to keep reiterating the health benefits. Like you say, there's a whole lot of asthma in our community. A lot of people that were raised on that formula, they have ear infections, asthma, all other kinds of respiratory illnesses because they didn't get the right kind of antibodies from the breast milk. And I think also, if we can get our friends who might be in the medical field, the doctors and so forth, to stop pushing formula, because that that really, it's like everything else. You're pushing something that is a financial benefit to somebody, but is not for the best health of the person.
And another thing about breastfeeding, it is also a guard against breast cancer. That is something that I learned. I had a doctor actually tell me that, and then I read an article about the later benefits of breastfeeding years after your kids are grown and you are not breastfeeding anymore. And I'm really glad to say that my daughter-in-law and my daughter breastfed their children and are still breastfeeding the baby, my son's son, who's like almost 4 months now or 6 months. But and I think culturally that was very much encouraged for them. And I think their circle of friends that they have are all breastfeeding moms. So there is something to be said for that support where you are not treated like an oddball because you want to do the thing that is the healthiest thing for you and for your baby, totally.
Yeah. I know it's about time for us to go, but I think maybe another thing that we can think about is ways to make the workplace breastfeeding friendly. I think for young mothers, it's good if you could have, and some places they have daycare centers on site and so forth. If you've got a child that's under 2 years old and they may still be breastfeeding, there should be ways that we should work toward that so that mothers don't have to leave that child when they're at that very, very tender age and they're still.
Well, I was absolutely spoiled when I was in Australia visiting my son and daughter-in-law. At the mall, they had a built-in nursery to
Mm.
die for. They had breastfeeding rooms. I mean, this place was really nice. I remember when Lorelai visited, she said, yeah, their nursery, their breastfeeding rooms were larger than my whole apartment. But they had a refrigerator if you needed to store your breast milk. They had like a changing table, which is something that they have implemented in almost all the bathrooms in the United States.
Yeah, they just
That
started
was
doing
something
that.
that was not there when Lavinia was born, and now they have changing tables in all the bathrooms, even in the men's bathrooms for dads who are taking
Yeah.
care of their kids.
Yeah. And it took a while to get to that point of sensitivity. I think when you see cultures where there's a lot more respect for motherhood, then they create things that make it easy for mothers. So I think those are some of the changes that we can advocate for and push for, and maybe even have legislation for, so that motherhood is something natural and it's something that's welcome everywhere, in the workplace, shopping malls, everywhere. So you don't have to feel like there's something wrong with you feeding your child when they're hungry.
Yes.
Yes. So we've got to go, but we do want to encourage you to breastfeed if you are a young mother or of childbearing age. And right below, and ask and tell us, what are some of the concerns you may have about breastfeeding? And we'll certainly be glad to answer your questions, comments, concerns, or reflections. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on our Facebook page, Three Black Moms. I'm Naima.
I'm Cheryl.
I'm Barbara. We are three Black moms.